Quality. Boom. Max. Okay, cool. Month released a month ago. I play WAS. How strong is the longsword? Let's go.
always wanted to say this. Destiny Starlight!
Do you think Zanny's watching this video? So this is me playing the longsword in Wilds, and do you see this new move? This is the new Spirit Release Slash, and it's every weep's wettest dream. I mean, look at that animation and the
Yeah.
delayed anime damage. What's up guys, Chris here, and today I will make the most in-depth longsword breakdown video for you guys after playing it at Gamescom. Let's start with the most important change. For those familiar with Longsword and World, you know that the Yai Spirit Slash has always been a very risky move to use since it reduced your gauge level if timed incorrectly. Since Rise, not only did you not lose a gauge level anymore when missing it, but you could actually increase your level by one stage when landing this counter correctly.
Oh
And this
shit.
major buff Longsword received carried over to Wilds. See how I'm currently on the yellow gauge? I go into Special Sheath and my Yai Spirit
Boom.
Slash levels me up to red. So then, just like in the past, after the Yai Spirit Slash, we can directly combo into Helmbreaker again, which consumes one gauge level.
Spirit Thrust! Hellbreaker! Slice!
Nah, the struggle for real.
Hellbreaker seems to deal 7 damage numbers again if everything connects properly. Here I hit 7 times 13 damage on Balahara and 7 times 15 on Chatakabra. Brand new in Wilds is you can now cancel out of your Helmbreaker animation if you know you'll miss it. This way,
Oh
you
shit.
also won't consume a gauge level. To 6 from Eric's Gaming recorded this very nicely in his gameplay. What's new in Wilds is the Spirit Release Slash, which based on my experience so far can only be used after the Helmbreaker. This would imply that you can only ever use it while on yellow gauge. Once you've used the Spirit Release Slash, you lose one more level and land on white gauge. But in this clip here, you can see me with the Spirit Release Slash, and good news is that you don't consume a gauge level if you miss. Much like the Helmbreaker, it is a delayed move mechanic whereby damage numbers appear after the slash has happened. And the damage output is crazy. After an initial tiny damage number of 3, we can see 3 times 25 damage, 3 times 16,
Damn.
3 times 12, and 3 times 7 damage. Like, are you kidding me? This is crazy. So before that, the Helmbreaker on red gauge dealt 105 damage and brought me to yellow. And then the Spirit Release Slash dealt 180 damage and brought me to white. Actually, 186 damage with this low rank gear on green sharpness and literally 0 offensive skills is very impressive. But Spirit
Shit.
Release Slash also consumes one gauge level, so I always was down to white gauge after using Helmbreaker and then Spirit Release Slash afterwards. Now, you might say 186 damage is fine, cause you have to level up your gauge twice afterwards to get back to red gauge, right? But no. Check out how fast you can get back from white to red with the new Focus Strike attack.
Damn. Wait.
While aiming
You
at
just
a
skipped
target,
yellow.
when you press R1 and make contact with a wound, then there are 3 different Focus Strike attacks you can use with Longsword. Well, based on my observation with the Gamescom version at least. First of all, this V-shape looking uppercut. This one seemed to be the neutral Focus Strike attack without holding any directional joystick inputs. Then secondly, you have the sideward slash via holding the joystick sideways. And lastly, even a backwards Focus Strike I was able to see in Dear Gamer's gameplay. Keep in mind that this is just my personal assumption that joystick directions determine which of the 3 Focus Strikes actually plays out. But what makes this move specifically so insanely good is that when you hit 2 wounds, you can directly level your gauge from white to red. And I feel like this can be used very often as it was pretty easy to wound monsters and hit 2 wounds at the same time. At least in the Gamescom version. But even if you only hit 1 wound and only level up by 1 gauge, you can still combo into Spirit Slash 3 right after the Focus Strike is done, allowing you to quickly get from yellow to red.
Hellbreaker, Spirit Release, Focus Strike. It's the new red gauge cycle of life.
But if this wasn't enough, Longsword has an almost completely new set of animations for the red gauge specifically.
Oh
Your
shit.
regular overhead slashes you do with triangle have a completely new animation on red gauge, and they are called Crimson Slash 1, 2, and 3. And this lets you hit way faster, resulting in more damage numbers. Also, check out how much the foresight slash has changed. While on red gauge, you will instead use what is called a foresight whirl slash, and it's straight out of anime. After the spirit round slash, you can then use a spinning crimson slash, which also allows you to change direction up to 180 degrees in case the monster is behind you.
That's
These
good.
combo options are so crazy. Let me talk about the new move Spirit Charge. You can use it by holding down R2, and it looks much like a counter, but I am 90% sure it actually isn't. Instead, what it does is it lets you level up your gauge if you hit it properly. What GamerSP showed really nicely in this clip is that when your combo goes into the wrong direction, you can go into Spirit Charge to change your direction. Then release the charge and level up your gauge. But it looks like you need to time it correctly. Also, maybe the focus armor skill can make this charge faster.
Icarus, you got this.
So from what it looks
I don't know, man.
Spirit Charge
I don't
can
know.
level up your gauge by 1 level, whereas Focus Strike can technically bring you from no gauge to red if you hit 3 wounds.
Listen, if Masood was really grinding like how he just challenged me, then I don't think I got it. I think it's over for me. I don't think I got it. And that's fine. I'll take my day 1 L. But I'm gonna get back. I will get back.
At least that's how it should work in theory, but we've only seen footage from white to red so far. If you guys have seen footage from no gauge to red, please let me know down below in the comments. Now, new in Wilds, Special Sheaths does not allow you to freely change direction anymore as it used to, unless maybe when you combine it with focus mode, but I didn't get to test it during my short play session. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see my longsword videos in the future. But just as we're used to, Special Sheath still gives you the same 2 combo options like in World. The Yai Slash and the Yai Spirit Slash. Yai Slash still gives Spirit Regen, which fills up your Spirit bar automatically. Sadly, there was no quick sheath armor skill available in the Gamescom version of Wild, so I couldn't test how much it influences Special Sheath and if it's going to be mandatory skill for Longsword or not. Well then finally, let's talk about
What game is
standard
this?
combo changes.
This game is called Monster Hunter Wilds. It's coming out in February, and I'm really excited for it. It's just you fight big monsters with cool looking weapons. And this is specifically the longsword. Yeah, it's a fun game. I've been playing it. Hell yeah.
Familiar with Longsword might remember the combo flow of your regular triangle hits. Overhead, thrust, rising slash. Overhead, thrust, rising slash.
What more could you want?
Wilds,
Exactly.
This has also changed, and the combo goes like this. Overhead, overhead, crescent. Overhead, overhead, crescent slash. This time around, it seems like the devs wanted to reserve the thrust attack exclusively for pressing circle, and I think this change is very straightforward and makes a lot of sense. The regular Spirit combo also changed.
Surprise.
Spirit Blade 1 and 2 let you move in different directions now. You can even move backwards while using them. If you hold your joysticks forward, look how much Spirit Blade moves you forward now. This can be used to quickly close a gap to a monster. Then, after Spirit Blade 3, the final Spirit Round Slash lets you change the direction quite a lot. Also, new in Wilds, while aiming with the focus mode, it seems like you can change the direction even further. One of the most stylish new longsword moves in Wilds is undoubtedly the Mount Finisher. Monster Hunter Wilds absolutely needs a collaboration with One Piece. A few small things I noticed when watching gameplay was that you can still use slinger ammo while your sword is drawn, showcased by Tokuda-san. The last thing I wanted to mention is that I felt like the Spirit Thrust had a shorter range forward compared to World, or maybe it was just me standing further away from the target without realizing it. At the same time though, many longsword animations felt faster. So then, what is my final opinion about Longsword and Wilds? I would say that on one hand, it has become a lot more beginner friendly in a way where missing either Yai Spirit slash or Spirit Release slash do not punish the player for whiffing, and Helmbreaker can be cancelled. So way lower risk than before, but just like in Rise, experienced players are still going to get rewarded for correctly timing the Yai Spirit slash, which levels up their gauge. All of the new mobility, honestly, kind of confused me at first, but I look forward to mastering it when the game comes out. I
Yeah.
think it will be fantastic.
Can't wait for
once
this
I'm
game
used
too.
to these changes. So ultimately, I would not be surprised if experienced players still find Longsword enjoyable since it's received such a big makeover. But at the same time, I can also see many new players picking up the Longsword in Wilds as their new main weapon. So in the end, Longsword could become even more popular. Boys, prepare to get staggered. Ultimately, Longsword is still a counter-heavy weapon with a high skill ceiling, which rewards you when knowing the monster's movesets inside out. And especially with all the new combo options, your brain will need time to digest all of this. Many of you guys know I'm a Charge Blade main first and foremost. And my brain
nah.
is honestly still largely
How'd the
wired
quality go
to
down?
basic Longsword from 2010. I used to play Longsword all the time back then, but regardless, I worked really hard on this video here analyzing every little detail of my captured footage with the Longsword and Wilds, and I hope it helped you guys to understand better how this weapon works. Of course, a big thanks to Capcom for the opportunity to record Wilds at Gamescom. Since the 20 minutes of gameplay Capcom allowed us to use are published, this is going to be my last in-depth video about Wilds for a while. Until
Video. This is very informative for me, a longsword player. So now, let's watch this one.
With the new footage,
Is it hard? What is it? Monster Hunter Wilds might be harder than we think. GG's. Posted 11 days ago. Oh shit, I skipped to the end. God damn it. Okay.
with the new
Sorry, that was
footage
fine.
from
Okay.
the latest trailer, I'm starting to have a sneaking suspicion that Wilds will be harder and more challenging than we're expecting. By this point in late 2024, difficulty in Monster Hunter is a topic that has been broken down into its nuances time and time again. This has only been exacerbated
like
by
easy or
Monster
something?
Hunter's ballooning into success post-World, becoming a top dog in the industry for Capcom. The classic debate of, are the games getting easier or are we as players just getting better, is one that goes back to much earlier entries in the series than the upcoming Wilds. It's not a very simple discussion, as difficulty in Monster Hunter is composed of multiple factors, mainly the following: a player's choice of weapon, their skill and knowledge of the game, and which monster they're actually hunting, all of which have a large degree of variability, which highlights a key factor about difficulty when it comes to Monster Hunter. As new players join in on the hunt, there's quite a bit for them to get used to, even if they may have experience with other action games. Us fans of Monster Hunter are already keenly aware of and come to love the quirks that Monster Hunter has to offer.
Okay.
Monster Hunter World streamlined a lot of these quirks through various system and gameplay changes, both of which are now the new normal, new world experience when it comes to playing these games. However, some haven't taken a liking to these changes either in World or in Rise. But the thriving success that Monster Hunter has experienced after this streamlining occurred is undeniable. The aptly named Old Guard of Monster Hunter now has minuscule numbers compared to the player base as a whole. Just as many players, if not more, have New World Monster Hunter as their only experiences within the series, and it's time for another evolution into the wilds. In my opinion, there's plenty to be excited about if you are a fan of Monster Hunter, regardless of when you accepted your first quest. And for context, my first introduction to Monster Hunter was the demo of 3 Ultimate on the Wii U, but I didn't truly get hooked until Generations on 3DS. So the question is, how is Wilds going to develop the most important aspect of Monster Hunter? Its gameplay and combat. There's been some key moments in footage of Wilds that have raised eyebrows in regards to how easy or hard the game could be. I'm going to start with what sparked my vision for this video. One of 3 new monsters showcased in the release date trailer, Uth Duna. Uth Duna is a new Leviathan-type monster and is the apex of the Scarlet Forest. Not that kind of apex. Apex as in top of the food chain. We can just get that out of here. And while we're here, does anyone else see a resemblance to the Gaping Dragon from Dark Souls 1? Man's got the floppy vibe going on. Let's take note of how large Uth Duna is. It could just be a perspective thing, and they recorded this with camera settings set fairly low, but Uth Duna looks massive. For a monster his size, his speed immediately caught my attention. World had some hefty, speedy monsters as well, both new and returning.
Oh, nah.
Tigrex, Nargacuga, and Barioth come to mind. But a Leviathan? The
Fuck all 3 of
fastest
those
Leviathans
monsters.
that I can remember are... But Uth Duna's size, it made me realize that maybe there's a reason why there's already been a noticeable shift in combat within Wilds. Animation cancels are starting to make their way into the series, which is definitely a big deal, as Monster Hunter has typically been a game about understanding animations of your own attacks, the monster's attacks, and maximizing the commitment levels of your attacks to properly punish openings against monsters. It looks like this is changing, and to a decent degree as well. Dual Blades can now cancel out of Demon Dance. Charge Blade will have an easier time aiming guard point AEDs, and Gunlance is able to cancel moves, including sheathing, into a guard.
Shit.
And then there's everyone's favorite weapon that never, ever causes any drama within the community, Longsword. Longsword can do some crazy stuff. You can now cancel out of Helm Splitter mid-air. Also, you can apparently cancel Spirit Slashes into a Foresight Slash. The demo is going to answer a lot of important questions. To be fair here, landing a Helm Splitter while at red gauge will spend 2 levels of gauge instead of the usual 1 and put you in white gauge. But all of these changes to weapons, allowing the player to have unusual amounts of maneuverability in Monster Hunter. Why? This will directly impact how threatening monsters are, and allow players to have an easier time exploiting monster patterns. So, unless Capcom is totally dropping the ball, and just squandering their second most successful series ever, there can only be one, albeit open-ended answer to that question. An increase in difficulty, which is exactly why I think Capcom is making it so that players have much more control over their movement in combat. It's not much to go off of yet, but I think the amount of challenge in Wilds as a base game is going to way surpass what was on offer with World and certainly Rise. What about the new offset and clash attacks? Allowing most weapons access to a parry or hyper armor? Capcom was absolutely experimenting with this in Rise and Sunbreak, in which every weapon has a counter or access to invincibility frames outside of rolling. Beyond that though, there's something else that I think people don't often remember. Whenever we get into the pre-release cycle of an upcoming Monster Hunter game, people seem to forget what it was like playing older Monster Hunter games. I don't even mean playing through your first ever Monster Hunter. That will always be a good experience of difficulty brought on by learning the game systems and combat. But think back to World's initial launch. Does anyone else remember how much of a wall that Anjanath was for a lot of players?
Anjanath wasn't even that
Monster
crazy.
Hunter veterans at the time could have had issues dealing with Anjanath, because they weren't just fighting a new monster. They were fighting a new game. The movement and combat in World was vastly different for both hunters and monsters alike. It takes time to properly adjust to combat in a new Monster Hunter game, and World brought the most changes to the series to date. I believe that Wilds is going to be a
Man,
similar
Hammer looks so
experience
fun.
with even more changes thrown in. Will Monster Hunter Wilds be too easy? I don't think so. I think Capcom has something up their sleeve and are taking notes from certain other games that play rather similarly to Monster Hunter. Challenge is clearly a good incentive to keep players invested, and more importantly, makes players willing to adapt to new environments, new monsters, new weapon changes, and a brand new Monster Hunter. It's hard to put into words how excited I am about Wilds. I've realized that Monster Hunter is a series that I've loved since 2016, and it's easy to feel the passion that the developers have for this series. Even the most recent trailer has me thrilled to see what Ryozo, the directors, and the team have put together for us.
I am
The
ready.
new monsters all have this feral feel to them, with very strong vibes of Monster Hunter Frontier, and although I haven't played Frontier, I'm all for that. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and joining me on my journey to Wilds. If you'd like to hop in the caravan with me, consider subscribing. I hope you have
That was a good
fantastic
video.
rest of your day.
Very. I wouldn't mind it being harder, kind of, maybe. I'm not really that good at it to begin with, so it's kind of like, and I'm not even good.